On today's Locked On Giants podcast, things I think about the upcoming New York Giants draft. We've got that and more coming your way next here on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work, and that of our talented team of writers. And as always, welcome on into our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And thank you if you're making us your first listen of the day. We do appreciate it. All right, on today's program, I've titled it Things I Think. All right, so I started making a list of topics about the upcoming draft. The draft is now inside of 3 weeks for the New York Giants. And just, different rumors that, have come out. Different scenarios and stuff like that. So I kind of made a list of all those things, and I'm going to weigh in on some of them, whether I think they're going to happen or they're not going to happen, and I'll tell you why. So that's the agenda for today's show. We'll talk about, obviously, trades. We'll talk about the quarterback situation. We'll talk about some clues that might be in the pressers that Joe Schoen, Brian Dable had, and a whole lot more. So again, welcome on into everybody. Let's get into it because we've got a lot of ground to cover. All right. The first item on my little pad of list here is the Giants and the possibility of them trading out of the number 3 overall pick. Now, earlier in the process, as we all know, there was talk about the Giants maybe exploring trading up in the draft with Tennessee so that the Giants had a chance of getting Cam Ward. Folks, that's not happening. All right. From what I understand, the Titans like Cam Ward. They're going to take him, and to get them to move out of that number 1 overall spot would take multiple first-round picks, and the Giants just aren't going to do that, right? It's not worth it. Cam Ward might very well become the next, Hall of Fame quarterback, but still, given where the Giants are, it's just not worth it for them and the way they've set things up. So we talk about clues and the hints that maybe the Giants are thinking. That's why they brought in Russell Wilson. That's why they brought in Jameis Winston. Those 2 guys are going to carry the load at quarterback for the team this year, right? Doesn't matter who the Giants draft. Those 2 guys are going to be 1 and 2 respectively, right? So the only way we might see a rookie if they draft one, which I'll get to in a moment, is if there are injuries to both guys, or if this season just totally goes down the toilet and, later on in the year, they decide that they want to, give a rookie some snaps. But to start the season and probably for the bulk of the season, we will not see a rookie quarterback, okay? The Giants are going to roll with Winston Wilson and Winston. Joe Schoen, Brian Dable, they need to win. They've got a tough slate of opponents. We all know that. They've got to win. And right now, I don't think there is a rookie that will achieve that for them right now. All right. Maybe down the line, yes, but right now, no. So I think the Giants stay put at number 3. Now, some people asked me, what about trading down? Would the Giants consider trading down? Folks, I don't think I see that either. All right. I'd love to see it, quite honestly, depending on how the board falls. I don't think that's going to happen, though, for a couple reasons. Number 1, again, Schoen and Dable, they have to win right now, okay? They can't afford to get cute. They can't afford to pass on, a solid player. Most draft analysts believe that there are maybe 12 to 15 guys in this class who are legitimate first-round grades, right? So if you're the Giants and you want to trade down, who are you going to trade down with? All right. I know there was, I think I saw a rumor saying, well, maybe the Giants swap places with the New England Patriots, and the Patriots, pick up one of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, depending on who's on the board. I don't see where that would make sense. I mean, I know the Giants would potentially get more draft picks, but for the Patriots to move up one spot, you're not talking a number one pick next year in all likelihood. So I just don't see that making sense for the Giants or for the Patriots for that matter. Um, as far as teams that need quarterbacks, if the Giants don't take a quarterback, then the teams behind them probably figure, okay, why even ask about trading up? Maybe they trade up with somebody else who might be ahead of a team that might take a quarterback. So I just don't see the Giants trading up, and I don't see them trading back, at least not in the early part of the first round. And I say that because later on, I am going to revisit the first round and the possibility of a trade. So, but yeah, that's the first thing, obviously, I don't see happening for the Giants. I just don't think it makes sense. I don't know that they'll find a trade partner who will give them maybe what they're looking for. And look, if history is kind of, or recent history, I should say, has kind of shown us anything, General Manager Joe Shane tends to overvalue what he's got. We saw it last year with Aziz Ojulari, where he was offered a fifth round pick for Aziz Ojulari, and he wanted a fourth. So Joe Shane's not going to give away draft picks for free. Okay, he's not going to, allow himself to give away picks at a market, at a discount. So I just don't think they make a move at the top of the first round. I think the Giants stay put at number 3, and they either take Abdul Carter of Penn State, the edge rusher, or Travis Hunter, whichever one of those guys is on the board, because I do think Cam Ward will go first, and one of Hunter or Carter, I believe, will go second to Cleveland. I'm thinking Cleveland is going to take Hunter. I think they would be foolish to pass on Hunter, to be honest with you, which means that the Giants could potentially get Abdul Carter. But again, I'm going to revisit this coming up a little later on in the show. All right. Now, let's go to point 2, and that is the quarterback situation. Now, I mentioned I didn't think the Giants would trade down in the first round. I didn't think that I mentioned that they probably would not trade up to number 1 or even number 2, but I could see them trading back into the bottom of the first round for their quarterback. Now, why do I say that? Couple reasons. Number 1, cap space. I looked up the Giants cap space. They are in the red right now. All right. 8.678 million in the red. Dead last in the NFL in cap space. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, well, they can manipulate the cap. They can restructure contracts and they'll get in compliance with everything. Sure, they can. But they're also going to need money to operate during the year. So I can see the Giants not taking all of their draft picks this in a couple of weeks. All right. I could see them potentially trading back into the bottom of the first round to get their quarterback, whether that's Jackson Dart, and I'm starting to think it won't be Jackson Dart. I'm thinking maybe it might be Jalen Milroe. I've been kind of hearing that guy could be the guy that surprises everybody. But I think the Giants, in order to get back into the bottom of the first round, obviously they're going to have to give up their second round pick. And I could see them giving up one of their 7th round picks. Joe Shane, since he's been here, I don't think he's used all of his 7th round picks when he's had them. He's basically used them as trade chips to move up. So I could see that happening again, where the Giants trade back into the bottom of the first round to get a quarterback. Now, why do I say that? Because look, we can say that the Giants will wait to day 2 to get a quarterback, but the drawback, going back to what I said earlier, the Giants are going to let Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston do all the heavy lifting. You take a quarterback on day 2, you're not going to have that option year. All right. So if your plan is to let that quarterback sit for the coming season, which I believe is the plan, you are going to lose a year. That means that come next year, you basically have 3 years with that guy. And theoretically, that could be enough time. But wouldn't it be nice if you could have the guy on the rookie contract and the first round rookie contract where you get the option year. If you like what you see, you get the extra year, and you get the extra year relatively inexpensive in relation to the cap at that time. So I think it makes too much sense for the Giants not to try to trade back into the bottom of the first round to get their quarterback. Again, teams are of the opinion that um, the picks from, I don't know, 15 onward they're borderline, first, second round picks. You're not talking that big of a difference in grade. You're not talking that big of a difference in value. What you are doing, though, is you're potentially saving some money in the transaction. All right. So it kind of, comes out in the wash and evens up. And it makes sense if, again, you feel that you can get a developmental quarterback prospect and get him on a rookie contract, the 5-year deal, the 5-year plan. So I do think the Giants will take that route. Where they're going to trade, I don't know. I would think they would want to get ahead of Pittsburgh, but if Pittsburgh's leaning towards Jackson Dart, I don't know if there's enough, for the Giants to want to go that high. Maybe they go, I don't know, somewhere between 25 and 32. Well, not 32 because the Eagles won't trade with them, but I could see them maybe going, somewhere in that range, 25 to say 31. So yeah, I do think that's what's going to happen with the Giants. It makes too much sense not to happen. And again, the salary cap issue, I know they can restructure contracts, but you kind of say that until you need to do it. And right now is not the time to have to worry about that. So that's what I see, or what I think may happen with the quarterback situation. All right. I've got more thoughts coming up right after this, so don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, the NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to fanduel.com today and claim your $250 in bonus bets. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. We've got shows 5 days a week. I've got guests coming up. Now, I had to reschedule a couple of guests, unfortunately, this week, so they'll probably be on next week. And also at some point next week, I believe we're going to hear from Giants General Manager Joe Shane as part of his annual draft preview presser, in which he says a lot but really doesn't say anything. But still, if you pay close attention, sometimes you can pick up little tiny nuggets as to maybe what he's thinking and how he's feeling about things. So it's always, good to listen. And I, of course, will have a full report for you. I think Joe is going to be, if history follows suit, I think he's going to be on Thursday of next week, but that's not confirmed. Once I know, I'll let you guys know. But all right, let's get back to things I think about the Giants draft. All right, let's talk about the number 3 pick. All right, we talked a little bit about it in the last segment. Let's talk about the number 3 pick. Now, I mentioned in the last segment that I believe it's going to come down to Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at number 3, if the Giants indeed stay at number 3. I believe that Cleveland will take Hunter, which means theoretically the Giants should take Abdul Carter. Now, if you have been listening to me or reading me, you know that I have expressed some concerns about Abdul Carter's medicals. All right. And the reason why I'm concerned about it is multiple, for several reasons. Number one, the stress reaction in his right foot, for which he didn't need surgery, but the fact that it popped up, that's a concern because, rest obviously cured it, but is there a danger of that thing getting aggravated again to where now he's going to miss time? Then, more recently, the fact that he did not work out at his pro day because per his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, he was rehabbing a shoulder injury that he suffered against Boise State. Now, even though Carter, got up after, the pro day was over and he said he was at 100%, but hey, we just need a little more time. That to me was a bit of a red flag. And, his agent again said that there is a possibility that Carter will hold a workout before the draft. We're running out of time, folks. I don't know that anything has been scheduled as I record this. Will something be scheduled? Possibly. Maybe they won't. But here's the point I want to make. If the Giants pass on Abdul Carter at number 3, that is a clear-cut sign that there was concern about his medical, because I don't see any other reason, legitimate reason, for the Giants to pass on Abdul Carter, all right, unless the medicals don't check out. So, that would be a big clue as to, while you're watching the draft unfold, if the Giants suddenly go on the clock and they take, say, Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan, and you're all saying, oh, why didn't they take, Abdul Carter? Probably because of the medicals. It's going to be very difficult for them to deny that or to hide that. Abdul Carter is, if he's healthy and those medicals come back fairly clean, he's got to be the pick. All right. They will find a spot for him. I'm not worried about that. I know some people said, well, where are they going to put him? If they've got Brian Burns and they've got Kayvon Thibodeau, where are they going to put Carter? They will find a spot for Carter, even if it means for the time being, Carter will maybe spell Brian Burns from some snaps and spell Kayvon Thibodeau from some snaps. Maybe, if they get him, it creates a situation where the Giants, who I do expect to pick up the option year of Kayvon Thibodeau's rookie contract, maybe they say, you know what? We're going to move him at the trade deadline. If things are going south, let's pick up some extra draft picks so that we can maybe move up next year in 2026 to get the player of our choice, whether it be a quarterback or whatever. So I do think Abdul Carter is probably going to be the Giants' pick if the medicals check out. That's a big if. But, of course, we'll see. There's still a couple weeks. There are still top 30 visits going on. I saw a report, obviously, that Dable met with Abdul Carter out in State College over the weekend. And, will he be checked over by the Giants medical team? Probably. I can't imagine why he wouldn't. So Carter is a guy, again, if the Giants pass on him, now you know why. It's because of the medicals. Okay, my next item, and I've said this before, I do believe, given the way the Giants board might be stacked up, they know they're not going to get Cam Ward. I think if it came down to Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, they would more likely go with Hunter over Carter. Why do I say that? Hunter is like getting 2 players in one. They can use help in the secondary. The secondary is still a little thin, despite the addition of Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. Obviously, they could use some help at the receiver. I just think, in Travis Hunter, you're getting a tremendous value. You're getting a good athlete. I don't think Travis Hunter is going to be a, both sides of the ball type player on every single, play every snap on both sides of the ball. That's not happening. But I think if you can work him into your defense in certain sub packages and also into the offense to take some of the onus off of Malik Neighbors, just imagine how much better both sides of the ball will be. But again, my gut feeling is that he's not getting past Cleveland. I know Cleveland needs a quarterback, but look, this should tell you, what they feel about the quarterback class. And I go back to the Giants, the Giants wanting to get Matthew Stafford, being willing to trade away assets and pay the guy, upwards of $50 million a year. They wouldn't do that if they were in love with this quarterback class. I am firmly convinced of that. That's why I say I could see them going maybe, day 2, or in this case, like I said in the beginning segment, going and trading back into the bottom of the first round because look, somebody's got to go in the first round, right? So even if there's only like 15 guys that you have a grade on, there's going to be 32 guys taken in the first round. So I just feel that, maybe the Giants are lukewarm on this quarterback class after Cam Ward. And I don't even know how they really feel about Cam Ward. I had heard earlier in the process that they really, really liked him, but they're not going to get him because Tennessee's going to take him. So that being said, coming up next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about things I think regarding the sneaky needs of this team. And I even have a surprise one on here that I normally wouldn't put on, but I'm going to mention it anyway because I do think it's something to keep an eye on. So that is coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, you probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. When you're shopping for food or treats or even pet health care, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food to treats to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They've even got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth, vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. And their auto ship option is a game changer. My little Macy here, she never has to worry about running out of her favorite chicken jerky treats or her food thanks to the convenience of Chewy's auto ship feature. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the show description. That's $20 savings on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the show description. Minimum purchase is required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and that was my little doggy, Macy, making an appearance on that Chewy ad. Macy, little squirmy worms, very camera shy. And every time I go to take a picture of her, she ducks away. It's like she knows I'm going to take a picture of her. But I want to send a thank you to my husband who helped, with that shoot, by the way. He stood off camera and was kind of like holding up a treat, which kind of kept her attention. So anyway, we are talking about things I think about the Giants' upcoming draft. And right now, what I want to do is I want to talk about the sneaky needs, as I call them, positions that I think the Giants could potentially draft or select in this draft that maybe we're not talking about. Now, before I get into that, the way the Giants kind of set things up is basically, they address some of the glaring holes on this team. Cornerback was glaring, safety was glaring. They added some veteran defensive line depth. They added some veteran offensive tackle depth. They still need to obviously fill in some other spots, but most of the starting spots, with maybe one exception, and that's defensive line, most of the starting spots, I think, are kind of, projected to be filled. So I do think, defensive line, this is a deep draft class. I do think the Giants will, get a defensive lineman in this class. So what are the sneaky needs, despite the fact, that the Giants basically added at these positions? Well, we'll start off with safety. Now, again, the Giants added Javon Holland, but you have Dane Belton behind them. All right, Dane Belton is entering the last year of his contract. Raheem Lane is still, I think, on the roster, but he was dealing with a knee injury that he suffered in December. And Anthony Johnson Jr. I'm fairly certain that a safety is going to come out of this draft class. I can't see how they would not add depth to the safety spot. Another sneaky need, inside linebacker. All right, Micah McFadden in the final year of his rookie contract. Bobby Okereke, last year of his contract in which he is going to collect guaranteed money. Now, Bobby Okereke does have 2 more years left on his deal, but once the guaranteed money dries up, That's when you have to keep an eye out and say, okay, is he maybe going to be a cap casualty? Right? He might not. I personally like Bobby. I hope Bobby, finishes out his contract. I think he's a good player. But that being said, they've got to add depth at that position, right? They've got Darius Mawaso, Deontay Johnson, two young players at that spot. Got to add a little bit more, I think. All right, interior offensive line. You've heard me say it numerous times on the show. Get young offensive linemen in here and start grooming them so that when the guys in front of them move on, or if they're injured, you have guys at the ready to plug in. That has been a big, big recurring issue that the Giants have failed to kind of grasp, right? They think they get it, but they don't. So, we talk about the right guard spot. Well, they went back and they re-signed Greg Van Roten. Not a horrible move, but Van Roten, he's not the long-term answer because he's up there in age, and I don't see him playing another 10 years. They're going to try and convert Evan Neal to guard. Will that work? I don't know. I hope it does, but it's anybody's guess right now if it will. They have Jay Kubas, who they are cross-training at center. Can he be a long-term answer? I don't know. Need to see more. Who else do they have in the young category department? Joshua Zudu? Well, they kind of wasted 2 years, in my opinion, plugging him in at tackle. Can he be a good guard? I don't know. So, I just because I don't know doesn't mean they don't know, but my point being is there anybody that we can sit here and say, yeah, they've got a young guy in development that can maybe step in? And oh, by the way, the backup center spot. Van Roten can handle that, but like I said, Van Roten's not going to be here for the next 10 years. So what are they going to do at that spot? They've got Austin Schlottman on the roster, but are they going to keep him? I'm not sure they will. So there's a lot of question marks still in my mind, at any rate, along the interior offensive line and what they're going to do. And I just don't think that position, that unit, I should say, is quite settled. Now, I do feel a little bit better about the offensive tackle spot. I think between James Hudson III and Stone Forsythe, they will find their swing tackle and, not have to shuffle, Jermaine Illuminor over to the left side if Andrew Thomas gets hurt again. That being said, do they have any young guys that are ready to step in? Because, hey, Jermaine Illuminor is in the final year of his contract. So what's the long-term plan there? Still a lot of questions on the offensive line, which is not, by the way, a sneaky need, but I have it on the list anyway for discussion. All right. The final thing, the final spot that I want to talk about, kicker. Now, I don't think the Giants are going to draft a kicker. I would be surprised if they do. I think with kickers, you can find them if you look. I get the impression that the Giants like older, more experienced kickers because at that point, a certain point in their career, they are more settled. They're into a routine, and also, the yips that the younger guys might have are gone. So I don't think the Giants will draft one. I could see them maybe adding one as an undrafted free agent. Now I know they also have Jude McIntyre on the roster. I fully expect he'll get an opportunity to compete, but I would not be surprised if the Giants maybe add another guy in training camp for kicker, because Graham Gano, for as good as he had been for the last few years, injuries have started to catch up with him. Last year, just not very efficient. Mr. Reliable became, Mr. Doubtful. And part of that was injuries, obviously, but, it's fair to wonder how much the injuries are starting to take their toll on Graham Gano. So I would not be surprised if kicker, they address it some way, shape, or form. Again, I don't think it'll be a draft pick, but if it is, who knows? If they have one of their 7th round picks left, maybe they spend it on a kicker. I don't think they will, but stranger things have happened. So those are the sneaky needs, and that is going to do it for today's show. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And again, Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Now, before we say goodbye, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft. Damian Parson, Keith Sanchez. They're giving you all the goods on the upcoming NFL draft. They've got prospect rankings, they've got rumors, they've got all kinds of goodies for you. So if, 'tis the season, folks, it's draft season, give them a listen. They will be obviously covering the draft, and they will also be on after the draft to give their expert opinions on everything that's going down. So I hope you will check them out. And I hope you will continue to check out the Locked On Giants podcast as we continue to bring you 5 days a week here on Locked On Giants. All right, everybody. I'm Patricia Traina saying goodbye, and I will see you tomorrow.